Hey folks, this is Ray, and we are going to take a quick look at some portions of our class activity 03, CA03. Alright, this is the practice page that we're looking at from the textbook, and if we scroll down, I'm not going to do all the problems, but let's take a look at a few of them. Here's a set of data that they have. This contains the total number of deaths worldwide as a result from earthquakes from 2000 to 2012, and then they ask you to answer some questions, proportions, what fraction of deaths happened before, etc. So basically, this is a simple problem where you can just address the particular year that we're talking about, or years that we're talking about, and then add up the things, and then maybe if they're looking for a proportion or percentage, then you divide by the total. But I wanted to show you just to get some insight on being able to use our Google Sheets to take advantage of some of the formulas and functionality of this. I'm going to copy this whole table. I'm going to start with the years, and I'm going to scroll down until I get everything including the total, and I'll copy it. So that's Control C, or just whatever copy things that you have. And what's cool about this is that your clipboard now, where you copied it into, knows that this is going to be some sort of a table. So if I just hit paste, this is just a regular paste, it should split it up into the different tables that you have. Okay, so if one of the questions here is asking what percentage of deaths occurred before 2001, and I think that before 2001 is just this one number. Well, that's not very exciting. Let's find another one. What percentage of deaths occurred in 2003 or after 2010? So in 2003, I have this number here. I'm just going to highlight it just so I can remember what it is I'm looking for. And then the next question was after 2010. So this is 2010. When they say after, what we want to do is we want to make sure we just add the years after 2010, but not including 2010. I'm going to highlight that too. Highlighting here is not really that important, but I just want to remember so I don't keep switching back and forth between the spreadsheet and the instructions. In any case, I want to show you how to add things kind of quickly in Google Sheets. So just pick any cell anywhere. I'm going to pick this one, and I'm going to hit the equal sign. And when you hit the equal sign in Excel or Google Sheets, it knows that a formula is coming. Google Sheets or the spreadsheet is going to be expecting a formula. And so there's a ton of different types of formula that you can find in Sheets or Excel. But here, we're not going to use any specific formula. We just want to add these things up. Now, I can literally type in 33,819 and 21,953 and stuff, but again, I want us to get used to the functionality of a spreadsheet. So while I have my equal sign here, I am hovering over this first one. I will click on that, and then it's going to say B5. Oops, I think I want the equal sign first, and then click on that B5. So what's cool about this is that it has this information here. It has like a running total, and right now it's 33,819. Now I'm going to add, so I'm going to hit the plus sign, and then I'm going to add this one, and then another plus sign, and and then here I have my total, and if I press enter at this point, I'm going to get my total result here. Okay, so that's a good way to add things. I'm going to unhighlight this so I don't confuse myself. Take the fill color and reset, and that should get everything back to normal. Let's pick another one. Let's pick one more. before 2012. What fraction of deaths happened before 2012? Oh, sorry. I'm not quite done with this one yet because it wants a percentage. So to get the percentage, I want to divide this number divided by the total. So I'm going to pick another cell. I'm going to scoot on over out here a little bit, hit the equal sign again, and then I'm going to click on this number and then the divide by symbol, which is the slash, and then the total. And here I have a number. Well, this is like the proportion or fraction or percentage. It's not quite a percentage, right? And so if I want this to be a percent, I can look at, this is an easy one because they have a lot of symbols here that I can use. So I want to format this as a percentage, so I'm just going to click on this while my box is in that, while I'm highlighting that particular box, and now it becomes 6.86%. I can add more decimals or take away more decimals if I need to by using these arrow decimal place buttons, and then that'll give me some information. All right, one more. Let's go back to this, and now I'm looking for what fraction of deaths happened before 2012. So before 2012 means probably not including 2012. So this is 2012 right here, and I think I just want to add a whole bunch of these things up. Now we can add up all those things like we did over here with a bunch of plus signs, but I can use a special command called sum. It actually has this over here for me already, but I will do it in a different cell. I'm going to click on this cell, and I'm going to say equals. And then this is where I get to use my command sum, S-U-M. Okay, and I'm going to open parentheses. Now I want to add up all the numbers between 2000 and 2011. So I'm going to start with one end, click, and then drag and until I get to the last slot, and I'm going to let go. Okay. And then at this point I can hit enter. I really should close the parentheses, but it allows me to hit enter. I'm going to close the parentheses and hit enter, and then this is my total. So now my fraction can just be, if I take, let me copy this number over here and paste it onto this. So now it looks like a fraction, or if you're writing this down, this could be your fraction. Sometimes they do want the fraction as a proportion or percentage, and I can do that as well. I can just again hit equal sign and then this number divided by this number, and that is 99.9% if you were to write it as a percentage. Okay, so that's our first problem, or the first problem that I'm going to cover using Excel sheets. I'll be back for the next one. Okay, we are back, and we are looking at this new set of problems where they're asking us to create a table, frequency, relative frequency, and cumulative relative frequency tables. So what we're going to do is we could do this by hand, and some of you have done it by hand, but I want to show you how you do it using Excel or Google Sheets. If we go to the Google Sheets, I have this old work that I did on this particular sheet, so I'm gonna go ahead and add a new sheet so I have a fresh new page to work with. And if I want to rename this AIDS research, kind of matches the topic. Here we're talking about a couple of researchers collecting data, and we want to deal with this data and then put it into this table. All right, and like I said, I think most of you have already done this, but we will do this using Excel or Google Sheets. I'm going to copy this, and I'm going to go to Sheets and paste it. Now when I paste it, I will realize that this pasting business has a couple of different ways to do this, but right now our data is kind of separated by semicolons, and so I'm going to do the regular paste for now, And one thing to note is that this data is just in the first cell, in the A1 cell. If I click anywhere else or click on any other cell where it looks like those numbers are there, but I see that there's nothing in the entry bar here, so it only exists in this very first cell, and this is a long line of data. So I want to change that. I'm going to go to data, and I'm going to scroll down to where it says split text to columns. So right now this is one big text entry, and I'm going to split it to columns. So if I click on that, it looks like I should have an option to figure out how to split it. That didn't work out, so let me try it again. Split text to column, here we go. Now it says, do we have a separator? I can detect automatically, but I clearly know that it's a semicolon, so I'm going to select the semicolon option, and it splits this up for me into different cells, so now I can deal with them as individual data sets. I still would like to see it as a column instead of as a row, because that's harder for me to deal with. So I will click on this one that would highlight a whole row. So if you click on any of these numbers, it would highlight a whole row. So I'm going to click on one to highlight the whole row, and I will copy this. And then I will go to the next row in 2, and I'm still in the column A, so this is the cell A2. And I'm going to right click or control click or command click, and then I will say paste special, and I will select transpose, so that would make this into a column instead of a row. Okay, now my first row still has the data that I already pasted down below, so I will highlight that, and I will press backspace to get rid of that data set. If you're using Microsoft Excel, I think you have to right click and click on clear data or clear contents. Okay, but in Google Sheets, you just have to select or press backspace. Now this is researcher A, so I'll label that. I don't think we need to. And then this is your data set. Now I can work with this and in a nicer way instead of having it listed as a row. In this particular problem or set of problems, they want you to create a table that has frequency, relative frequency, and cumulative relative frequency. And then here they have frequency, relative frequency, and cumulative relative frequency. So I'll fill in the table for A, and then I'll have you figure out how to do the other table. But I will do this by clicking and highlighting the whole table, so I don't have to retype everything. You can if you want, but I'm just going to copy, and then I will paste it here, and I'll start with C2 just to give a little bit of space, and I will paste, regular paste, and then here we go. I'll extend some of these so I can see the words a little bit more. It's not necessary, but it might be good just so I know where to continue to work about stuff. Okay, now there's several ways to do this. In doing it by hand, you find numbers between 0.5 and 6.5. I see one number, two numbers here. I don't see any other numbers, but the fact that it's not sorted makes it a lot more difficult for me to do this. So let me give you a tip that you may or may not use. This is not exactly how we're going to use this, but I also want to show you that you can sort things in Google Sheets. So I'm going to highlight everything here, and actually you can highlight everything there. I can just click on A. I know that first entry is not a data point, it's just a label, but I think Excel or Google Sheets will figure that out. So I click on A, and that would highlight the whole column, and I'm going to click on data, and I don't see it here, but I think it's, if I scroll up, I see sort range. So I'm going to sort the range that I highlighted from A to Z. Oh, it didn't look at research as a data point, so I'm going to hit undo, and now I'm just going to highlight from 3 all the way to that last number, and then I will data and sort range again. So now it's sorted. So I can easily pick out the number 2 here, because there's only 2 numbers between 0.5 and 6.5, and between 6.5 and 12.5 there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then the next number is 13, so there's only 5 numbers here. So you could do this by hand a lot easier now because we sorted it, but I'm going to show you an even quicker way of doing it. So a quicker way of doing it is to use a fancy command that they have in Google Sheets called frequency. Makes sense, right? For frequency though, you need a bin, or you need classes. So I'm going to call this classes, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to find the largest number for each of these class. So the first class, the largest number is 6.5. So I'm just going to type in 6.5 here. The second one, the largest number is 12.5. So I'm going to type 12.5 there. The next largest number is 18.5. And then I'm going to see a pattern here, right? It looks like from 6.5 I can add 6 to it and get 12.5. From 12.5 I can add 6 to that and I'm going to get 18.5. And so if I add 6 to that, I'm going to get 24.5. So it looks like this thing has a pattern where it adds 6 each time. Now if you click on 2 or more of sets of numbers that have a pattern and drag, see this little dot here where your cursor goes from an arrow to an X, you click and drag that as far down as this last number, 48.5. So I didn't need that last one. I'm just gonna go to that cell and press delete or backspace, and now I have the classes, the upper limits for each of those classes. Okay, now to capture the frequency for each of these classes, I'm going to go right next to this, and I can even label up on top frequency. And next to that first number in your class, I will say equals, and then type the word frequency. And even if you just get started, it'll give you suggestions, and I'm just gonna either tab or click on frequency, and now it says frequency open parentheses. I also see frequency open parentheses in the bar, and if you're dealing with that here, they usually pops up a question mark and say, hey, do you need help with the formula? So if you click on that, it says, okay, you need the data, comma, and classes. So we know where the data is. Okay, I'm going to close this, and I'm going to move my cursor back to this place over here. And the data is the data that is located in column A. So I'm going to click on number 3, click and drag until I get to the last number, which happens to be 47. Now I know that all my numbers are highlighted here because it says A2 colon A41. So that's cell A2. And then the colon says you're going to get everything in between up to A41. So I'm going to just regular click past that because I have to press comma, and then I have to provide the classes. Where are the classes? We just set up the classes a little bit earlier, and the classes are here. I'm going to click and drag, and then let go, and then now I have the classes. All right. You can close the parentheses, but I think Excel or Google Sheets knows that when you're at the end of the command, you can close the parentheses or not. It'll take care of itself. So I'm going to press enter, and then it fills out the frequencies for me. The first number was 2, this next number was 5, and those are the 2 and 5 that we saw earlier. And then the last number here is 0. Okay, now this is important. I want to put this in my table, so this is like a temporary working space here, but I want to put this in my table over here. Now I can copy and paste, but something weird is going to happen if you just copy and paste. So you need to copy, and then instead of regular paste, I'm going to go to the first slot here and say paste special. Because if I do a regular paste, something weird is going to happen. But I want paste special because I want to paste only the values, not the formulas that are involved. So if I paste special, it'll just copy every single thing here as is without having to worry about formulas. Okay, notice that there's a 0 here, and what the spreadsheet does is that it accounts for anything that might have been over some data values that are over 48.5. And the fact that this is 0 means it's good. We have everything covered. Okay, the next thing we need to do is the relative frequency, and for that I need the total of this. I could put the total down here, but I'm going to skip down just one below just to give it some space and say this is going to be my total, and I'm going to say equals and then sum. Now when I hit equals, it suggests things to me. In this particular scenario, yes, this is what I want, so I can just press enter or tab or click on this. But if it's not what I want, I have to be careful, and I would hide the formula suggestion. That might hide the formula suggestion for the future, which may or may not be good. So I'll just press sum or type sum parentheses, and I'll click and drag all the numbers that I want added. And I think we expected 40 because the problem talked about 40. The researcher has 40 data points. So that's my first one. Frequency or relative frequency. Relative frequency is to put the frequencies all divided by 40. So you could do that, just 2 divided by 40, 5 divided by 40, and then figure out what those numbers are. Or we can let Excel do the work, or Google Sheets do the work. I'm going to hit equals, and I'm going to click on this number, and then I'll say divided by, and then I can just type the number 40 in here. Okay, I think that's the best bet right now. There's ways to capture this number by clicking on this, but I don't want that. It gets a little confusing, so I'm just going to hit 40, press enter, and then it says suggest autofill. So what this does is it looks at the number next to it and divides by 40, and I think that's pretty much what I want. If you don't want that suggestion, you can reject the suggestion and then do it yourself, which can be done quite easily. I'm going to reject the suggestion, and I'm going to go back to this first one and say, okay, it's going to be the number next to it divided by 40, and if I have to press enter. If I click on this cell again and I see that little dot and I click and drag that down, then I'm going to get pretty much the same numbers that they were suggesting. And then the other good thing is that the sum is equal to 1 of the highlighted thing. So they have all these special features now. But if you want to make sure that the sum is equal to 1, which it should equal to 1, I can go here and say equals and then sum parentheses. I want to add up all these relative frequency numbers, and that should add up to 100% or 1. Okay, remember how to change this into a percentage. You can highlight this and then click on the percent, and then that changes everything to a percent. I'm going to leave it as a decimal, so I'm going to click on undo and leave it as a decimal for now. Okay, now the cumulative frequency, cumulative relative frequency, is looking at the relative frequency for each class and then counting what was already there. So for this one, I can just say equals, and I can click on this number. Now I definitely don't want this suggestion that they put here because I already did that. I'm not going to hit tab, and I was kind of having a hard time figuring this out. So the way I did it was I go to the formula bar, the entry bar, and I clicked on that, and then that divided by 40 disappeared, which is great. I don't want that divided by 40 here. So I'm going to press enter. Now this thing is the suggested autofill that I definitely do not want. I don't want this because it looks like it's just copying the relative frequency. I don't want to just copy the relative frequency. I did it for the first one, but I don't want to do it for all of them. So I'm going to reject this suggestion. And what I want to do for the next one is I want to hit equals, and then I want to add up the previous frequency. So I click on that plus the next frequency. And so if I do that, which was suggested, but I redid it again, then I press enter, then I get this new number, 0.175. And 0.175 happens when you add these two numbers together. And that's essentially what you want. So now that this thing has this formula of getting the top number plus the number next to it, I would imagine that the next thing is going to be the same. So I can hit equals to here again, and then it thinks for me. It says, okay, is this what you want? It's the top number plus the number next to it, or the number next to it plus the top number. I can say yes, that's what I want, and I can just hit tab or whatever, and then that's going to give me my next number. Now if it now knows my formula or my process, I can click on this again and do the click and drag until to that last line. So by doing that, I get all these numbers where the number that we're looking at adds the previous number plus the number next to it, and that's how you create the cumulative frequency. What is important for cumulative frequency is that this very last class, you have to have 100% or 1, and this is the one here. Adding up the cumulative relative frequency is not useful at all. What is useful for the cumulative relative frequency is this, just the very last number has to be 100% or has to be 1. Okay. All right, so that's the process. Let me show you one more thing here, which is the graph. We can create a graph from here by highlighting these two. Maybe I'll even highlight the titles. And then I will say insert and then chart. And what happens is that it draws a graph. Now technically this is a bar graph. It has the names, and then it has the way it's partitioned, but then there's a space in between. Now we don't want those spaces in between when we're talking about histograms, which is a way to represent quantitative data using a graph. So I'm going to delete this chart, and instead of using this already made up table, I'm going to highlight the numbers here. In fact, I want the title also included, so I'm going to go ahead and click on A, which highlights the whole thing. And then now I'm going to press insert, and I'm going to do chart again. Now the chart is like a crapshoot. In this case, it looks like it got the right chart that I want. Sometimes it gives you some other weird charts depending on the particular data set, but you definitely want to look for the one that says histogram. So sometimes they do some bar charts, sometimes they do some line charts and stuff like that. So whenever you get things like that, just go back to the chart type and make sure you select histogram. Now this chart goes from 0 to 8.3 and 16.67, but that's not exactly what I want. I want a chart that matches my table here. Okay, so to make it match my table, I need to know that I'm going from 0.5 to 6.5 and all that. So I need to make some minor adjustments, and the way to do that is to customize. There's a lot of chart options here, but the first one that we want to go to is the option that says histogram, and then the bucket size. So the bucket size is automatically computed depending on the data set. You can adjust the bucket size to be one of these numbers that they're suggesting. That having a bucket size of 1 is kind of ridiculous. Having a bucket size of 5 seems okay. Having a bucket size of 25 is not useful at all. And so 5 looks like it works nicely, but you can actually type in your own number. And if you remember when we were looking at the bins or the classes, it looks like there's steps of 6 at a time. So I'm going to go ahead and type 6 in here and press enter, and this is almost almost what we want. The first number was 2 and the next number was 5. So here I'm a little bit short of 5 because I didn't go all the way up to 12.5. I only went up to 12. And so the next thing to do is go to horizontal axis and then type in the minimum value. Here the minimum value they are suggesting is 0. So the minimum value you want here is 0.5, which is the minimum value that was there. So now it goes from 0.5 to 6.5 to 12.5 to 18.5, etc., which is exactly what you wanted. Okay, now let's see if it matches. I have first number is 2, the next number is 5. The third number is 9, so this is 8 and 10, so it's between 8 and 10, so that's definitely 9. And then you get the rest of the numbers. Okay, so you just created a histogram that matches your frequency table, and that's what you're looking for. All right, so that's it for now, and then I encourage you to really go through some of this practice stuff. If you're doing this on your computer and if you hover over these things, you can interact with MathGPT so that you can get more insights and information. And I will expect you to know how to do all the problems from this this class activity 0.3. Okay, good luck.